In the vast stillness of space, there's a planet that has called to us for centuries, a crimson world just close enough to stir hope, and just far enough to hold mystery. Mars, the red planet, has captured our imaginations, challenged our science, and tested our machines. But for every rover we send, a shadow seems to follow. Missions vanish. Signals fade. Silent wreckage lies scattered across the Martian plains. And so a question lingers in the cosmic silence: why do so many of our robotic explorers fail on Mars? Is it the planet itself, its dust, its cold, its unpredictability? Or is there something more, something deeper, almost mythical, that turns each failure into a ghost story? Tonight, we journey across decades of ambition, discovery, and heartbreak. From forgotten probes to heroic survivors, from scientific truths to whispered curses, this is the tale of Mars and the machines that dared to reach it. Settle in. Let the stars guide you. And let us unravel the enigma of the Mars curse. Imagine standing at the edge of a canyon so vast that it stretches beyond the horizon, bathed in hues of rusty red and ochre gold. The air is thin, the wind dry and whispering. Above, a sun dimmer than we know back home glows gently through a pink-orange sky. And below your feet, a silence so deep, it feels sacred. This is Mars. For as long as we've looked up at the night sky, the red planet has stared back at us, unblinking, unknowable, and utterly captivating. To the ancients, it was the god of war. To astronomers of the Renaissance, it was a celestial puzzle. And to us, the dreamers of the modern world, it has become something more, a mirror, a challenge, a question we cannot let go of. But what is it about Mars that grips us so completely? Why do we keep reaching for it, again and again, knowing that it may not reach back? In cosmic terms, Mars is our neighbor. At its closest, it lies about 55 million kilometers from Earth. A distance that, while immense, is small enough to feel within reach, especially in the imagination. It's not just proximity that lures us, though. It's the familiarity. Mars has seasons. It has polar ice caps that wax and wane. It has valleys and volcanoes, weather and dust storms. It has a day length remarkably close to our own, 24 hours and 39 minutes. It has water, or at least the memory of it, carved into its ancient surface like forgotten poetry. In these ways, Mars resembles Earth more than any other planet. But it's also starkly different. Its atmosphere is a wisp, made mostly of carbon dioxide. Its surface pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. And the temperatures, oh, the cold, can plunge to minus 125 degrees Celsius during the Martian night. This duality, familiar yet alien, close yet hostile, is part of Mars's strange allure. It is a planet that teases us with possibilities, only to retreat behind mystery. To look at Mars is to see time laid bare. Its rust-colored deserts stretch untouched for billions of years. Its towering Olympus Mons, 3 times taller than Everest, hasn't erupted in eons. Its vast Valles Marineris would swallow the Grand Canyon 10 times over, carved not by water, but tectonic scars and ancient secrets. There are no birds here. No trees. No buzzing of insects or babble of streams. And yet, in its stillness, Mars speaks. It speaks through its silence. Through the winds that etch dunes into spirals. Through the chemical whispers in its rocks. through meteorite scars that tell tales of a violent past. It is a planet of history, written in dust, waiting for us to listen. And we have tried to listen. The first probes we sent were simple. In the 1960s and 70s, missions from both the United States and the Soviet Union raced to touch Mars. Most never made it. Some missed. Others crashed. A few sent back precious data before going dark. But even in failure, they lit a spark. Each mission, successful or not, became a line in a growing story, a story of persistence against a stubborn, silent planet. Then came the landers, Viking 1 and 2 in 1976. They didn't just fly by or orbit, they reached out and touched Martian soil. They took photos, measured wind, tasted the air. And most hauntingly, they searched for life. What they found was inconclusive. No bugs. No microbes waving hello. But also, no proof of absence. Mars, it seemed, had once been wetter, warmer, perhaps even alive. The mystery deepened. Yet something strange accompanied our pursuit of Mars. A troubling trend. A series of losses, failures, and disappearances. By the 1990s, nearly 2/3 of all Mars missions had failed. Probes vanished without explanation. Signals cut out during landing. Rovers refused to wake. Each failure felt personal, not just because of the technology lost, but because of the hope that went with it. Some began whispering of a Mars curse. A cosmic resistance. As if the planet itself rejected our presence. Of course, scientists knew better. Engineering is hard, spaceflight even harder. Mars, with its tricky atmosphere and communication delays, was simply a harsh destination. But the myth lingered. It still does. Because even today, with all our advancements, Mars remains unpredictable. We send rovers packed with the best technology Earth can offer, and still we hold our breath every time they land. Perhaps the idea of a curse is just a way to cope with our own vulnerability. To anthropomorphize a planet that doesn't care, because we do. Because every rover is more than a machine. It's a vessel of our curiosity, our intellect, our hope. When a mission fails, it stings. Not just in dollars or data, but in spirit. Because we see ourselves in these robots. We cheer when they land. We mourn when they die. We give them names, personalities, even funerals. Think of opportunity, stuck in a dust storm. The final message it sent, "My battery is low, and it's getting dark." That line echoed across the world like a poem. We cried. For a machine. On a planet millions of kilometers away. Mars doesn't speak. But our rovers do. And we've come to care deeply about what they have to say. In many ways, Mars is a mirror, not just of Earth, but of our species. Our resilience. Our limitations. Our longing. When we stare at the red planet, we see our past, the forces that shaped our own world. We see our future, where we might live, explore, or perish. And we see our present, the fragile dance between ambition and humility. Mars doesn't make it easy. And maybe that's the point. If we could conquer it easily, it wouldn't matter as much. But because it challenges us, because it forces us to fail and try again, it becomes more than a destination. It becomes a story. A relationship. And like any relationship, it demands patience, respect, and the willingness to listen even when the other side is silent. As we begin this journey through the so-called Mars curse, let's not seek superstition, but understanding. Let's trace the arc of our efforts, the dreams launched, the signals lost, the lessons gained. Because the silence of Mars is not empty. It is full of meaning, if we're willing to hear it. So come, let us walk across the red sands together, through failures and triumphs, through myths and science, and unravel why Mars has both beckoned and bewildered us for so long. If Mars were to have a cemetery, it would stretch across a rusty plain under a salmon-pink sky. Scattered across its surface like forgotten relics are the remnants of our ambition, pieces of spacecraft, charred heat shields, broken transmitters, and silent rovers that once whispered to Earth across millions of kilometers. It's here, in this quiet graveyard of machines, that we begin to uncover the curious reputation Mars has developed over the decades, a reputation for devouring our technology and leaving us in suspense. Since the beginning of space exploration, missions to Mars have faced a startlingly high failure rate. And while the curse may not be real in any supernatural sense, the history is enough to make any space agency pause before they dare to try again. Let us travel back to the beginning, when we first tried to touch another world. In the 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, Mars became a symbolic battlefield in the race to space. The United States and the Soviet Union aimed to be the first to conquer the Red Planet with robotic explorers. But Mars had other plans. The Soviet Union launched the first Mars probe, Marsnik-1, in 1960. It failed to leave Earth's orbit. The next attempt, Marsnik-2, met the same fate. Over the next 2 decades, the Soviet Mars program suffered a long string of failed missions, many of which lost contact or crashed before they could send back a single image. The United States fared slightly better, with Mariner 4 becoming the first spacecraft to fly by Mars in 1965 and send back close-up images. But even that success was laced with bittersweet revelation. The pictures showed a barren, cratered world that looked more like the Moon than the potentially life-bearing planet many had imagined. Still, we pressed on. We kept trying. And for every successful mission that sent back groundbreaking data, there were several others that simply disappeared. One of the most notable modern mysteries was the Beagle 2. This British-built lander hitched a ride aboard the European Space Agency's Mars Express mission and was supposed to land on Christmas Day, 2003. But contact was never established. It was presumed lost, until 12 years later, when NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted its remains on the Martian surface. The lander had indeed arrived, but 2 of its 4 solar panels had failed to deploy, blocking the communication antenna. It had died in silence, alone. Then there was Schiaparelli, part of the European ExoMars mission in 2016. During its descent, a software error misinterpreted its data, believing it had already landed when it was still kilometers above ground. It shut off its retrorockets early and plummeted to the surface, crashing at high speed. And who could forget Mars Climate Orbiter, which infamously burned up in 1999 because one team used imperial units while the other used metric. A tiny miscommunication caused a $327 million mission to vanish in the Martian atmosphere. The list goes on: Phobos Grunt, Mars Observer, Inqua 1, Nozomi. Each failed for a different reason, some technical, some human, some sheer bad luck. But all contributed to the growing lore that Mars was somehow cursed. From a technical standpoint, Mars is one of the hardest targets in the solar system. It's far enough away to make communication delayed and command impossible in real time. Its thin atmosphere provides just enough resistance to complicate landing, but not enough to slow a spacecraft effectively with parachutes alone. Landing on Mars is often described as 7 minutes of terror, the time it takes for a spacecraft to enter the atmosphere, decelerate, and, hopefully, touch down safely. Every system must function flawlessly, and there's no room for error. And then there's dust, fine, pervasive Martian dust that clings to everything. It coats solar panels, clogs joints, and blinds cameras. Winds can whip it into planet-wide storms that blot out the sun for weeks, as happened in 2018, when Opportunity, one of the most resilient rovers ever built, succumbed to darkness after 15 years of service. Even when our machines survive the landing, Mars tests them constantly. The term Mars curse isn't scientific, but it reflects a very human response to repeated failure. We turn to stories and metaphors when data fails to satisfy our longing for meaning. We whisper of ancient forces, or perhaps a planetary defiance, as though Mars resents being probed, scanned, and studied. This superstition is not unique. Explorers of old once spoke of sea monsters and vengeful gods when ships vanished into the unknown. Today, the vastness of space evokes the same reverence and fear. Is it possible we feel a kind of guilt for intruding on another world? Do we project our anxieties and ambitions onto these lifeless places, hoping for signs of welcome or warning? The Mars curse is perhaps not a curse at all, but a mirror. It reflects our growing pains as a spacefaring civilization. It reminds us that exploration is never easy, and that progress is carved through failures, one by one. And yet, every failed mission has taught us something. The wreckage on Mars is not just debris, it is data. Each shattered lander, each silenced probe, tells a story we can learn from. We've improved our landing techniques, refined our sensors, built more resilient hardware. We've transitioned from relying solely on solar power to using nuclear energy for long-term missions. We've created more autonomous systems, allowing rovers to navigate and make decisions on their own. Failure has become part of the process. Not a curse, but a curriculum. And with each lesson, we've come closer to understanding Mars, not just as a destination, but as a test. A test of ingenuity, of patience, of persistence. Perhaps someday, when humans walk across the surface of Mars, they will come upon the resting places of these robotic pioneers. They might find Sojourner, nestled near the Pathfinder lander. They might gaze upon Spirit, half buried in dust, or leave flowers beside Opportunity, honoring its final resting place in Perseverance Valley. In time, these fallen explorers may be remembered not for how they failed, but for how they dared. In the next chapter of our story, we will explore what happens when contact with these rovers is lost. What do we feel when silence falls? How does the absence of signal become louder than sound? There's something profoundly haunting about silence. In our everyday lives, silence can be comforting, a pause in the noise, a breath of peace. But in space exploration, silence is something else entirely. It's a warning. A mystery. Sometimes, it's a death knell. When a rover on Mars goes silent, there is no dramatic explosion. No cries for help. Just, nothing. The last signal is received, a few lines of data, maybe a camera snapshot, maybe a weather report, and then the light goes out. The rover falls still on the dusty plains of another world, and Earth waits. And listens. And hopes. But sometimes, the silence stretches too long. In this part, we enter that tense, uncertain space between presence and absence, where engineers hold their breath and space agencies keep their antennae turned toward the void. We explore the lost connections, some brief, some permanent, and what they mean not just technically, but emotionally. First, let's understand the fragile line that binds us to our distant machines. Communicating with Mars is not like picking up a phone. It's more like sending a message in a bottle across a vast, invisible sea. Depending on the positions of the planets, signals take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to reach Mars. That's one way. A simple, "Are you okay?" and the rover's "Yes" might take up to 40 minutes to complete the round trip. The Deep Space Network, giant radio antennas spread across Earth, is what keeps us in touch. These stations strain to hear the faint whispers of data coming from the far reaches of the solar system. It's like trying to hear a watch tick from across a football field. And yet, somehow, it works, most of the time. But when a rover goes silent, everything becomes a waiting game. Did the batteries fail? Was it a software crash? Did a dust storm block the solar panels? Or did Mars, in some quiet and indifferent way, finally win? Take Spirit, one of NASA's beloved twin rovers. Spirit had already outlived its expected 90-day mission by years, exploring craters, snapping stunning panoramas, even dragging a broken wheel across the Martian surface like a war veteran with a limp. But in 2009, Spirit became stuck in soft soil. Her wheels spun, but she couldn't move. Engineers tried for months to free her, commanding her to drive, to turn, to inch her way out. But the Martian terrain wouldn't let go. Then came winter. With her solar panels tilted the wrong way, Spirit couldn't gather enough energy to stay warm. One day, she stopped talking. No fanfare. No last words. Just, quiet. NASA kept listening. For over a year, they sent wake-up calls, pinged her antennas, beamed software patches. But the silence remained. And in 2011, NASA declared the mission over. What was most heartbreaking wasn't the technical failure, it was the emotional bond. Spirit had become more than a machine. She was a companion. An explorer. A little spark of human curiosity on a world so far away. Then there was opportunity. She was the longest-lasting rover on Mars, operating for nearly 15 years. She traveled over 45 kilometers, an off-world marathon. She survived dust storms, winter darkness, and aging joints. She was the rover that simply wouldn't quit. Until the great dust storm of 2018. This wasn't a normal storm, it was a planet-wide blackout. The skies turned opaque. The sun vanished. Opportunity, powered only by sunlight, slipped into hibernation. Engineers hoped she'd wake again when the skies cleared. They waited days, weeks, months. In all, NASA sent over 1,000 signals. And then, 8 months later, they sent the final call. She didn't answer. The last message she sent, before going quiet, was translated poetically by the world: "My battery is low, and it's getting dark." It wasn't her actual words, but it felt true. And it broke hearts. Losing contact with a rover is like losing a friend you've never met. Behind every mission is a team, a group of engineers, scientists, programmers, who spend years designing, building, and operating these machines. They know the click of the wheels, the rhythms of the sensors, the quirks of their little robot. They name them. They talk to them. They care for them. So when a signal is lost, it's personal. Engineers will tell you they don't cry over machines. But then they'll go silent for a moment, and you realize, they do. Not because the metal is gone, but because the story ended. Because the voice that once came through space, reminding us of our reach and our ingenuity, has gone still. But not every silence is the end. Sometimes, rovers come back. The Curiosity rover, which is nuclear-powered, once went quiet for days during a glitch. People feared the worst, but it rebooted, recovered, and resumed sending selfies from Mount Sharp like nothing had happened. And the Ingenuity helicopter, Mars's first flying scout, has faced multiple communications dropouts. Each time, NASA held its breath. Each time, Ingenuity found its voice again, like a child shouting back across a canyon. These moments remind us that silence isn't always final. That sometimes, in the cold and distant quiet, life, however mechanical, finds a way back. Even when they don't return, the lost signals leave behind more than sadness. Each rover that goes silent teaches us something, about resilience, about limits, about how to build the next one smarter and stronger. And maybe about ourselves. Our willingness to keep trying, to risk loss, to send fragile things into harsh places, because there's something beautiful in the attempt. Mars doesn't destroy these machines out of malice. It simply is, cold, dry, and vast. The silence isn't rejection. It's nature's boundary. And every time we hear it, we learn how to cross it better. So in the dark space between signals, in the static and the waiting, there is more than mystery. There is meaning. There is hope. And there is a quiet reminder, to explore is to risk silence. But it is also to dream louder than the void. Mars is a world of silence and stillness, but underneath that deceptive calm lies one of the most hostile environments our machines have ever faced. The Martian dust is legendary, not just in color, but in persistence. It's not the soft, fluffy kind we imagine gently drifting to the ground. It's fine, abrasive, and electrostatically clingy, sticking to everything like a stubborn memory. This dust has been one of the primary culprits behind the slow demise of many Mars rovers. Unlike Earth, Mars lacks rain or wind strong enough to regularly clean surfaces. As the dust accumulates on solar panels, it slowly starves the rovers of power. Over time, the panels, once glistening with potential, become dull, coated in the red of a foreign world. The rovers, relying on sunlight to stay alive, begin to fade. Their cameras dim. Their wheels slow. Their voices go silent. Sometimes, nature offers a reprieve. In rare moments, wind gusts, what engineers call cleaning events, clear the dust away and bring the rovers back to life, like a miracle from a distant land. Spirit and Opportunity both experienced such events, extending their lives well beyond their intended missions. But the dust always returns, and eventually, it wins. Mars is cold. Bone-deep, soul-stilling cold. With an average surface temperature of about -80 degrees Fahrenheit, -62 degrees Celsius, and nighttime lows plummeting to -195 degrees Fahrenheit, -125 degrees Celsius, this isn't just discomfort, it's existential danger for any machine. To survive the frigid Martian nights, rovers carry internal heaters, powered either by solar energy or, in some cases, a small nuclear generator. But energy is precious, and using it to stay warm means there's less to spend on movement, communication, and science. Rovers are forced into a delicate balancing act, deciding each day how much to explore and how much to simply survive. The extreme cold also stresses the materials the rovers are built from. Wires can become brittle. Lubricants in joints and wheels can freeze or become too thick to function properly. Over time, the repeated freezing and thawing causes wear and fatigue, eventually something gives. Spirit, for instance, became trapped in soft soil in 2009, unable to free itself. Engineers tried everything, but eventually, the cold settled in. By March 2010, after months of silence, NASA had to say goodbye. The cold had claimed another traveler. Mars lacks a magnetic field and a thick atmosphere, the very shields that protect life on Earth from cosmic radiation. This means the surface of Mars is constantly bathed in high-energy particles from the Sun and deep space. While this is a concern for future astronauts, it's also a threat to machines. Radiation can interfere with electronics, corrupt data, and cause long-term degradation of critical systems. Over time, solar particles can fry delicate circuits or create glitches that are impossible to diagnose from millions of kilometers away. The more time a rover spends on the Martian surface, the greater its exposure, and the more unpredictable its behavior becomes. This radiation doesn't leave visible marks. It doesn't cause the dramatic wear and tear that dust or cold does. Instead, it seeps in quietly, slowly eroding the rover's ability to think, to respond, to remember. There's rarely a single moment when a Mars rover dies. Instead, it's a gradual fading, a slow relinquishing of function and connection. It starts with weaker signals. Then missed check-ins. Slower responses. Then silence. On Earth, engineers wait and listen, hopeful but realistic. They send repeated signals, "Are you still there?" But the void remains. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. And finally, with reluctant hearts, they declare the mission over. Not because the rover failed, but because it endured for as long as it could, pushed beyond its design, embraced by an alien world, and ultimately surrendered to the harsh truth of Mars. These robotic explorers don't mourn, but we do. When opportunity sent its final message, "My battery is low, and it's getting dark," it wasn't truly what it said, but how we interpreted its silence. We anthropomorphized it, gave it a soul. Because in its quiet perseverance, we saw something of ourselves. The dust, the cold, the radiation, they are not villains. They are simply the nature of Mars. And yet, against all odds, we've sent fragile emissaries to survive them. Not just to test our technology, but to ask questions only Mars can answer. And when those machines go silent, they don't vanish without a trace. They leave behind paths carved into soil, data etched into memory, and stories whispered back across the void. In that silence, there is no failure. Only the echo of effort, and the unending curiosity of the human spirit. For centuries, Mars has held a strange and magnetic place in the human imagination. Blood-red and wandering across our skies, it was named after the Roman god of war, a celestial body cloaked in mystery and power. In more recent history, as our robotic explorers continued to fall silent on its dusty plains, whispers of a so-called Mars curse began to circulate, not just among conspiracy theorists, but even among seasoned engineers and journalists, half-joking with furrowed brows. Could there really be something otherworldly thwarting our ambitions? Of course, science laughs in the face of superstition. But stories have power, and this tale of a cursed planet, touches a nerve deep in our species. The story of the Mars curse is not just about machines breaking down, it's about our fragile optimism in the face of a vast, indifferent universe. It's about the emotional toll of failure. It's about how easily the human mind, yearning for meaning, reaches for myth when met with repeated silence. The idea of a Mars curse didn't emerge overnight. It slowly took shape over decades of mission failures. The 1960s saw the Soviet Union suffer repeated defeats, rockets exploding on the pad, probes losing contact just minutes after launch. The Americans didn't fare much better. One mission would suffer a guidance error, another would transmit garbled data, another would simply vanish into the void. It was as if Mars itself was pushing back, rejecting our advances. By the late 1990s, the phrase, "Mars curse," had taken hold in the media. After the high-profile failure of NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter, lost due to a mix-up between metric and imperial units, the public began to suspect that something was fundamentally wrong. How could the world's most advanced space agency make such a basic mistake? How could so many missions just fail? And so, the myth began to breathe on its own. The truth is, exploring Mars is incredibly difficult. It's not just far away, it's a hostile world with razor-thin atmosphere, extreme temperature fluctuations, and terrain that seems designed to trap and destroy rovers. There's no magic in the failures. They're the result of razor-thin margins and unpredictable variables. Interplanetary missions are complex chains of events where a single weak link, be it a loose wire, a corrupted bit of software, or a miscalculated trajectory, can lead to total loss. The margin for error is vanishingly small. And the truth is also this: space agencies are getting better. Much better. While failures once dominated headlines, the past 2 decades have seen remarkable successes. From spirit and opportunity to perseverance and ingenuity, modern missions are robust, intelligent, and adaptable. The curse, if it ever existed, has been gradually lifted, not by rituals, but by science, engineering, and relentless perseverance. Still, we cling to stories like the Mars Curse because they help us process the unexplainable. In a world of overwhelming data and cold logic, myth gives us a thread to follow. It comforts us when we fail. It offers the illusion of agency. If there is a curse, perhaps it can be broken. The Mars Curse, then, is not really about Mars. It's about us. It reflects our collective fear of insignificance. Our dread of pouring time, effort, and hope into a machine that disappears into silence. And, perhaps, our suspicion that the universe has a personality, one that watches, judges, and occasionally slaps our hand away. In this way, the myth isn't foolish. It's human. Deeply, profoundly human. There is value in failure, especially when it's public, painful, and expensive. Every failed mission taught us something. We learned about the reliability of components under cosmic radiation. About the importance of redundant systems. About designing code that can self-correct. Each silence from Mars was not a void, but a lesson. Even missions that were lost before reaching Mars still gave birth to innovations in propulsion, communication, and international collaboration. The curse, if it were ever real, didn't stop us. It only made us smarter. As Carl Sagan once said, there are no failed experiments. Every experiment yields insight. And Mars, for all its indifference, has been an unforgiving but effective teacher. Interestingly, as we've gotten better at reaching Mars, the myth has begun to shift. It no longer focuses on failed launches, but instead on the silence that follows success. Rovers like Spirit and Opportunity exceeded all expectations, and then died slowly, covered in dust and disconnected from Earth. There's a new kind of sadness there. A new myth taking root, not that Mars curses our machines, but that it slowly forgets them. That they become ghosts, wandering alone through an alien world, never to be heard from again. It's a romantic notion, and like all myths, it contains a seed of truth. Perhaps the curse we speak of isn't mechanical at all. Perhaps what we fear is not that our machines will fail, but that they will succeed, and still no one will be there to hear them. What if we reach Mars again and again, and all we find is silence? No life, no answers, just rock and dust and echoes. The Mars curse, at its core, is about our loneliness. Our desire to connect. Our hope that somewhere, somehow, something out there will answer back. And when all we receive is static, we tell stories. Stories to make sense of the silence. And yet, we keep going. We send new rovers, launch new orbiters, and plan for human boots on the Martian surface. The so-called curse has not deterred us. If anything, it has become a badge of honor. Every scarred mission patch, every moment of lost contact, every failure, now forms part of the story, our story, of reaching beyond. The myth of the Mars curse is not a story of defeat. It's a story of persistence. Of the human refusal to accept silence. Of listening harder. Trying again. And dreaming bigger. Because someday, perhaps soon, we'll walk on Mars. And when we do, we'll visit the silent wrecks, the resting places of Spirit and Sojourner and Beagle too, not as victims of a curse, but as pioneers who made the path possible. Despite the bleak statistics of mission failures and technological heartbreaks, not all Martian explorers have met a silent end. Against the backdrop of loss and failure, a few names have become more than just hardware, they've become legends. Spirit, opportunity, perseverance. These rovers didn't just survive, they thrived. They defied the odds, danced with dust storms, braved winters, and etched their names into the red soil of Mars and the hearts of those who followed their journeys from millions of miles away. These survivors are more than robotic success stories. They are testaments to human resilience, ingenuity, and our unyielding curiosity. Their journeys represent the rare but glorious victories in a saga often marked by vanishing signals and broken dreams. Let us pause to remember their stories. Launched in June 2003 and landing on Mars in January 2004, Spirit MRA was originally designed to last 90 sols, Martian days, roughly 92 Earth days. But Spirit didn't follow the script. She exceeded every expectation, lasting more than 6 Earth years, over 2,200 sols, until her final transmission in March 2010. Spirit landed in Gusev Crater, an area thought to have once held a lake. Through her work, scientists discovered evidence of ancient volcanic activity, water-altered minerals, and even silica-rich soil, hints of a once habitable environment. But Spirit's legacy wasn't just scientific. It was emotional. She got stuck in soft soil in 2009, her wheels spinning helplessly. Yet even as a stationary science platform, she continued to collect data and send home discoveries. Spirit's team on Earth fought tirelessly to rescue her, rewriting software, sending complex commands, even nudging her wheels pixel by pixel. When she finally went silent in 2010, it wasn't just a loss of contact, it was saying goodbye to a friend who had braved the unknown on our behalf. Spirit's twin, Opportunity, MRB, landed on the opposite side of Mars, Meridiani Planum, just weeks after her sister. And while she shared Spirit's design and intended lifespan, Opportunity took survival to new heights, or rather, new distances. Opportunity roved Mars for nearly 15 years, covering more than 45 kilometers, shattering all records for extraterrestrial driving. Her greatest triumphs include exploring Endurance Crater, investigating Victoria Crater, and uncovering the first evidence of water on Mars through the discovery of hematite spherules, nicknamed blueberries. But perhaps most powerful was her final moment. In June 2018, a massive dust storm enveloped the planet. Sunlight vanished. Opportunity's solar panels, her only source of energy, were blanketed in dust. NASA engineers sent over 1,000 signals across many months. But she never woke up. Her final message to Earth, interpreted poetically, broke hearts worldwide. My battery is low, and it's getting dark. Opportunity taught us that endurance on Mars isn't just about engineering, it's about heart. Launched in 2020 and landing with breathtaking precision in Jezero Crater in February 2021, Perseverance is the most advanced rover ever sent to another world. Built upon the lessons of its predecessors, Percy is not merely surviving, he's thriving. With a suite of cutting-edge instruments, Perseverance's mission is ambitious, to search for signs of ancient microbial life, to study Mars' geology and climate, and most dramatically, to begin collecting and storing samples that will eventually be brought back to Earth. Percy is a rover with personality. He has drilled cores from Martian rocks, recorded the first ever sounds from Mars, and even captured his own landing through high-resolution video. He carries tributes from Earth, names, poems, and a microchip inscribed with "Explore as One." And Perseverance isn't alone. He brought along a historic companion, Ingenuity, the first ever helicopter to fly on another planet. Like a Martian dragonfly, Ingenuity has flitted through thin air, scouting paths and proving that flight is possible in the red planet's tenuous atmosphere. Together, they symbolize the new era of Martian exploration, one not of curses, but of courage. What unites these three rovers, spirit, opportunity, and perseverance, is not just longevity or science. It's story. Each one reminds us that Mars is not an easy place. It's harsh. It's cold. It's deadly. But it's also beautiful, mysterious, and worth exploring. Their survival stories give hope. For every lost probe, these rovers stand as proof that success is possible. They teach us to persist, to adapt, and to dream bigger than ever before. The Mars curse. Maybe it exists. Maybe not. But spirit, opportunity, and perseverance show us that even in a land where many vanish, some rise, survive, and shine like distant stars in a cold Martian sky. For a world so silent, Mars has told us so much. Across decades of exploration, the red planet has quietly revealed its secrets, layer by layer, through the lenses of our machines. Though the dust storms howl and the nights dip to killing cold, the rovers and orbiters we've sent have captured the whispers of an ancient world, one that may have once breathed, just like ours. Let's listen to what Mars has been trying to tell us. Mars is often described as Earth's little brother, similar in structure, but smaller and colder, with a thin atmosphere and no magnetic field. Through images and data from rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance, we've seen landscapes that are both eerily alien and strangely familiar: dried-up riverbeds, sedimentary rock layers, craters that stretch for miles. These clues suggest that Mars was once wetter and warmer, a place where rivers flowed, lakes pooled, and perhaps even oceans surged. It speaks of a planet that had the ingredients for life, long before Earth's earliest civilizations were even imagined. Curiosity's explorations of Gale Crater have revealed clay minerals, the kind that form in the presence of water. Perseverance, landing in Jezero Crater, now roams what appears to be an ancient river delta. In its rocks are the stories of a time billions of years ago when Mars could have harbored microbial life. The planet's layers of history are written in its dust and stone. Each rover, with its tools and sensors, becomes a geologist's assistant, reading this planetary diary page by page. The most profound question we've ever asked of Mars is the one that echoes in all of human imagination. Are we alone? That question isn't merely scientific. It's spiritual. It's poetic. It's personal. Mars is our closest shot at finding evidence of extraterrestrial life, not intelligent aliens waving back at us, but tiny, fossilized whispers of something that once was. Ancient microbial life, perhaps. Tiny footprints in mineral form. And so, each mission to Mars becomes a detective story, searching not just for water, but for biosignatures, chemical clues, isotopic ratios, organic molecules. Perseverance, in particular, has become our ambassador in this search. It drills into rocks, collects samples, and stores them in sealed tubes, waiting for a future mission to bring them home. It listens with its microphones to the Martian wind, watches for dust devils, and maps the chemical compositions of ancient terrain. In these tasks, there's a sense of reverence, as though we're not just probing a planet, but asking it, did life ever bloom here, too? While Mars has no global magnetic field and only a whisper of an atmosphere today, that wasn't always the case. Thanks to orbiters like MAVEN, we now know that Mars once had a thicker atmosphere. Over millions of years, solar wind, unimpeded by a magnetic field, stripped it away into space. What remains now is an atmosphere 100 times thinner than Earth's, composed mostly of carbon dioxide. This thin veil can't retain heat, nor can it support liquid water on the surface. But it does create hauntingly beautiful weather patterns: frost on crater rims, clouds of carbon dioxide ice drifting above the Martian dawn, and dust devils that wander across the surface like ghosts. By studying the atmosphere, we don't just learn about Mars. We learn about ourselves, about climate, loss, transformation. We see a warning written across the sky. One of the more recent voices of Mars has come from a surprising source: its own subtle tremors. The InSight lander, equipped with a sensitive seismometer, has detected hundreds of Mars quakes. These tiny planetary rumbles give us a glimpse into Mars's interior, a core that may still be cooling, crustal movements, and possible volcanic activity deep underground. These signals are like a planetary heartbeat, faint, but telling. They remind us that while Mars may look dead, it isn't entirely still. Mars has shown us contradictions at every turn. A desert world, with signs of ancient floods. A dead world, that quivers with seismic life. A cold wasteland, with evidence of ancient warmth. From the Great Valles Marineris, a canyon system that dwarfs the Grand Canyon, to Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the solar system, Mars defies easy definition. It is scarred and beautiful, desolate yet rich with story. The more we study it, the more it challenges our assumptions. About life. About habitability. About the fragility of planets, and our place upon one. In many ways, Mars is not just another world. It is a mirror. It shows us a version of Earth's possible future. A world where climate changed irrevocably. A world that lost its protection, its water, perhaps even its life. It speaks to us in warnings, not of fiction, but of science. It also speaks to us of hope, that even in ruin, there is beauty. That knowledge can bloom from silence. That curiosity can endure across time, space, and even planetary loss. Through rovers, orbiters, landers, and dreams, Mars has spoken. It has told us of rivers that ran and skies that were once thicker. It has hinted at the possibility that it was once alive, or could be, again, in the faint microbial corners. What we've learned is only the beginning. There are still more questions than answers. But every image, every sample, every tremor brings us closer to understanding not just Mars, but the very nature of life and survival in the universe. In the silence of its plains and the shadows of its canyons, Mars continues to speak. All we need to do is keep listening. The story of Mars exploration has always been one of learning, sometimes the hard way. For every triumph, there have been failures. For every cheer in the control room, a silent heartbreak. Yet with each rover we send, we gather not only data about the red planet, but wisdom about ourselves, how we dream, how we adapt, and how we persist in the face of adversity. Now, standing on the threshold of a new era, we ask a profound question: what must the next explorers be? Not just in hardware and engineering, but in vision, resilience, and purpose. How do we build machines that can not only endure the Martian trials, but embrace them? Early Mars landers were simple by today's standards. They had limited computing power, basic programming, and modest mobility. But each mission added something new. Pathfinder brought autonomous navigation, Spirit and Opportunity improved redundancy and terrain analysis, Curiosity introduced nuclear power and advanced chemistry labs, Perseverance added AI-driven hazard detection, sample caching, and even a drone companion, Ingenuity. It's a clear arc. Our rovers are becoming more intelligent, more autonomous, more adaptive. The next wave will need to build on this intelligence, not just with faster processors, but with better judgment. Rovers may soon decide where to go based on evolving scientific goals, adjusting their path not by pre-programmed logic, but learned patterns. Like digital explorers with curiosity etched into their code. Imagine a rover that not only senses dust storms but hunkers down, shielding itself, conserving energy, waiting it out. One that, if one of its wheels fails, redistributes its movement across legs or alternate systems. Machines not just executing commands, but surviving. Choosing to persist. Mars is a punishing place. Extreme cold, corrosive dust, radiation, sharp temperature swings. To survive there, a rover must be armored in materials that don't just resist, but respond. New alloys are being developed that can flex instead of fracture, shedding dust like leaves repel water. Memory-shaped materials may allow components to morph under stress, then return to form. Coatings that reflect radiation while retaining heat. Solar panels that clean themselves using electrostatic pulses. Batteries that stay warm through phase change insulation, and components that heal microfractures over time. These aren't just technologies, they are the lessons of every rover that broke, stalled, or vanished. Their sacrifices shaping a generation of tougher machines. One of the most critical lessons from decades of Mars missions is the value of redundancy. Not just in duplication, but in graceful fallback. Spirit's right wheel failed, so it drove backward. Opportunity survived an airbag-bouncing landing that would terrify any modern engineer. Ingenuity was meant for 5 flights, it's done over 60. The next rovers won't just have backups, they'll be built with graceful degradation in mind. If a robotic arm fails, maybe the body itself can tilt to position instruments. If a camera goes blind, perhaps a network of sensors can build a composite view. Systems will overlap, support, and compensate. Not because we expect failure, but because we embrace it as part of the design. Like our own bodies, which adapt after injury, these machines will carry the same spirit. We fall, we adjust, we keep going. The future isn't just rovers crawling alone across dusty plains. It's networks. Fleets. A choreography of machines, rovers, orbiters, drones, and maybe one day, even submarines beneath frozen Martian lakes. Imagine a rover coordinating with a drone overhead, spotting distant caves. Or one relaying data through a balloon floating in the thin Martian sky. Surface units supported by orbiting AI satellites, triangulating position with precision Earth GPS could only dream of. The Martian explorer will no longer be a lone traveler, but a node in a thinking, sensing, adaptive ecosystem. Like bees in a hive, or neurons in a brain, each part strengthening the whole. These future explorers are more than machines. They are our eyes, our hands, our questions etched into silicon and steel. They'll carry not just tools, but pieces of us, our hope, our hunger to know, our refusal to stop asking. They'll gather the rocks that may contain ancient life. Drill into ice that remembers a warmer Mars. Record the wind, taste the soil, and map the lands we may one day walk. In doing so, they'll prepare the way, not just for more robots, but for people. Every smarter rover brings us closer to sending not a machine, but a soul. A human heartbeat beneath a Martian sky. Because Mars has earned our respect. It doesn't yield to brute force or careless design. It demands care, humility, and imagination. To return, again and again, despite the losses, to keep improving, refining, reimagining, that is what makes this story extraordinary. It's not a curse. It's a challenge. One we accept. Because that's what explorers do. They learn. They adapt. And they keep going. Someday, we will go. The dream of walking on Mars has flickered in the imagination of humanity for over half a century. Writers, scientists, filmmakers, and visionaries have all conjured the moment when a human boot presses into the rust-red soil of an alien world. And while the rovers that came before may have been waylaid by dust, distance, and design, they were not failures. They were the pioneers. The first footprints, digital and mechanical, of a path we must one day walk ourselves. But what will it mean to follow in their tracks? When we speak of going to Mars, it's easy to get caught in the tangibles, rockets, habitats, life support systems. Yet beneath the steel and circuitry lies a deeper journey, a psychological, emotional, and symbolic crossing. Unlike the Moon, Mars is not just a nearby rock to plant a flag. It is a world. A planet. A place with valleys deeper than Earth's Grand Canyon, and volcanoes so vast they dwarf Everest. To go to Mars is not just to travel. It is to migrate into the unknown. By the time we finally set foot on Mars, we won't be arriving on a blank canvas. We'll be entering a place already touched by human ingenuity. Spirit, opportunity, curiosity, perseverance, they will be waiting for us. Perhaps rusted and silent, perhaps half buried in dust, their presence will be a reminder, we were here. What will it feel like to see perseverance up close, not through a camera feed millions of miles away, but with our own eyes and gloved hands? What kind of reverence will we have for these robotic ancestors? Will we preserve them like sacred relics, or use them as tools for study, or simply nod and walk past them, onto the next ridge? They were our scouts. And in many ways, they were braver than we will ever be. They went alone. They operated without warmth, without breath, without hope of return. Their mission was to look, to learn, and to last as long as possible in a world that wanted them gone. And though many failed to even land, or died shortly after, their legacy is stitched into every blueprint for a future Mars mission. We stand on their silicon shoulders. When the first human steps onto Martian soil, the cameras will roll, the world will hold its breath, and history will be made. But that step will not be singular. It will be the culmination of millions of smaller steps, those taken by engineers, scientists, and yes, by the rovers. It's possible that the landing site will be chosen not for ease or safety, but because of what came before. Maybe we'll land near Jezero crater to pick up where Perseverance left off. Maybe we'll go to Olympus Mons or Valles Marineris, guided by the scans of past orbiters. Maybe, just maybe, we'll land near Spirit, where it still sits, frozen mid-climb on a rocky slope, wheels jammed but camera once wide open to the Martian dawn. Imagine that moment, a human hand brushing Martian dust off a solar panel, like visiting the grave of a long-lost friend. It will be a meeting of generations. One of the most overlooked aspects of exploration is the emotional narrative, the stories we carry with us into the unknown. When we land on Mars, we won't just be bringing food, tools, and oxygen. We'll bring meaning. We'll bring the hopes of the billions who watched the first images beam back from opportunity. The tears shed when Spirit stopped speaking. The awe of seeing Curiosity's selfie on a distant plane. The thrill of Perseverance landing with a hovering sky crane. These stories will be in our minds and hearts, shaping every step we take. And the stories will multiply. Because humans are not just explorers, we are storytellers. The first footprints on Mars will not just mark presence, they will spark myth. Children will learn about the first Mars walk the way we now speak of the Apollo moon landing. Artists will paint it. Writers will reinvent it. It will become part of who we are. But it will also remind us, we never arrived alone. The machines that came before us have taught us more than just geology or weather patterns. They taught us resilience. They taught us that failure isn't the end, it's the data point before the next leap. They taught us how to listen, how to wait, and how to adapt. In Spirit-Stuck Wheels, we learned about Martian soil mechanics. In Opportunity's silence, we understood the power of dust and time. In Curiosity's ongoing trek, we see the endurance needed for long-term survival. In Perseverance's ingenuity, we glimpsed the tools of the future. Even the missions that failed on arrival or lost contact on descent gave us information about atmospheric conditions, landing strategies, and the limits of our assumptions. These are not just stories of loss. They are blueprints. So when humans go, they will do so equipped not just with the latest tech, but with the cumulative wisdom of every probe, every glitch, every silent final ping. The curse, it turns out, was never really a curse. It was a curriculum. As we look forward to human presence on Mars, we must ask ourselves, what kind of visitors will we be? Will we terraform it? Colonize it? Protect it? Will we treat Mars as a mirror of our past mistakes or a blank page for something better? The rovers never asked these questions. They could not. But we must. They showed us how to arrive. Now we must decide how to stay. Will we build monuments to the machines? Will we create museums in domes to house spirit and opportunity? Will we write new myths, where perseverance is a modern-day Prometheus bringing fire from the stars? Will we remember that Mars, though lifeless now, might once have hosted life, and could again? When we go to Mars, we will go as inheritors of a long, tireless quest. Not just to explore, but to understand. Not just to land, but to endure. The Rovers, in their silent persistence, have paved the way. Each one, a whisper across the void, "Follow me." And one day, we will. We will walk the ridges they once scanned. We will gaze up at the same cold sky. We will build, survive, thrive, and remember. For in the end, the legacy of the machines is not in their failures. It's in what they made possible. They were not lost. They were the beginning. As the echoes of Mars fade into the stillness of night, thank you for joining us on this quiet journey across its scarlet sands. If this story stirred your curiosity, your wonder, or simply helped you unwind under the stars, consider supporting our voyage. You can subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, or like this video so others may find their way here too. And if you'd like more stories like this, tales of space, time, and the human spirit, our universe is just getting started. Until next time, sleep gently, dream deeply, and keep looking up.